So what advice do we give that is simple and actionable for Jennifer or Judith or Dave, who's listening to this now? They are, 40 years old potentially. They have a 9-to-5 job. They're very busy. Maybe they have some kids to feed at the same time. They don't have time to be looking at doing a fine sort of tooth comb over every single thing that they're putting into their body. They're not a scientist.
Agreed. It's a problem because the food industry has made the grocery store a minefield, and it's really easy to set off an explosion. If you walk in, you've basically lost. That's how bad it is. Understood. So the simple rule is eat real food. So what's real food? Well, food that came out of the ground or animals that ate food that came out of the ground. The problem is we all lead busy lives and we're looking for labor-saving devices because people don't even have time to cook. Most people, 33% of Americans don't even know how to cook anymore. So, what are they going to do? So we understand this. I mean, it's a problem. Agreed. We need food that is metabolically healthy for us, not metabolically detrimental. And the problem is that as soon as you put the added sugar in the food, you have made it metabolically detrimental. Now, the food industry will say, well, there are all these other good things in there, like vitamins and minerals. We fortify it, et cetera. So I'm here to tell you, toxin A plus antidote B still equals death. Okay? Just because they put some vitamins in there, or you take a dietary supplement, if it's not solving your mitochondrial dysfunction, what's the point? So you can't believe what the food industry is telling you, okay? If they say something is healthy, it's usually the opposite. Whatever it says on the package, believe the opposite, because they have an incentive to put wrong stuff on the package. And I'll be honest with you, I'm part of, numerous lawsuits suing the food industry for deceptive advertising, misbranding, mislabeling. 70% of all of the items in the American grocery store are misbranded or mislabeled.
In what way?
They say things that are not true.
Give me some examples.
Well, first of all, time they use the word healthy, okay, they say no added sugar. Okay, but in fact, they put in apple puree or raspberry puree or evaporated cane juice. There are 262 names for sugar, and the food industry uses all of them. And so they will say that something's no added sugar, but that, in fact, is actually not the case. Okay, there's a whole host of this. Kellogg's has been sued for Raisin Bran. Okay, everyone thinks Raisin Bran, well, it's just raisins and bran. What color are the raisins in Raisin Bran?
I've never seen it.
Well, I mean, raisins are purple.
Yeah.
Purple brown.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, normally.
Well, the raisins in Raisin Bran are white. Why? If you take the raisins in Raisin Bran, that's supposed to be 11 grams of sugar, but on the side of the package, it says that one serving is 18 grams of sugar. Where'd the other 7 come from? It's the white, because they've all been dipped in a sugar solution to make them sweeter, as an example. Okay? So, Post has been sued, General Mills, theirs was dismissed. Mondelez, a whole host of companies are actually under the gun now to change their practices.
Why do you care so much?
I am a pediatrician. My job is to take care of children. Children are vulnerable in the same way. Minorities are vulnerable in the same way prisoners are vulnerable. Okay, they need a voice. My job is to give every kid a shot. Well, we now have neonatal obesity. We have babies being born, Israel, South Africa, Russia, United States, 4 separate studies showing that over the past 25 years, birth weight has gone up 200 grams, half a pound. in all 4 countries. And when you do DEXA scanning to look at body composition on those newborns, those 200 grams are all fat. We have a neonatal obesity. These kids did not get obese by dieting and exercising, by gluttony and sloth. They came out of the womb behind the 8 ball. It's my job as a pediatrician to fix the problem. That's what I care.
Can you just give me a little bit of brief overview of everything you're talking about, the studies you've referenced, all of that? What is the academic experience, background, research that you've done that's built all of the foundations of your knowledge?
I spent the first 20 years of my medical practice, in academia, basically, doing what they told me to do, the way I learned it. And I thought calories were the same, and I thought that, it didn't matter, and this is not what you do, and this is not how you take care of patients. You do prescriptions and you do procedures, and that's how you do it. And then I started doing research because I was at St. Jude Children's Research Hospital taking care of these massively obese kids who had brain tumors that were treated by surgery or radiation, and they became massively obese because of it, because their hypothalamus was damaged, because they couldn't see that leptin signal that we talked about earlier.
Which is the hunger.
Which is part of hunger. It's not the only hunger.
It's ghrelin related.
It's more of an energy sufficiency signal.
Okay, right.
It's the energy sufficiency signal. Anyway, when we suppressed their insulin release with that drug I mentioned before, they lost weight and they started exercising spontaneously. So we did that with adults, and guess what? Same thing happened. And we measured their energy expenditure, and instead of it going down, as you'd expect when you lose weight, normally your energy expenditure goes down, their energy expenditure went up. So what this told me was that insulin is blocking leptin, and as long as your leptin's being blocked, you feel like crap, and you're hungry, and you don't want to get off the couch. And as soon as your insulin goes down, now your brain can see the leptin, and you're not hungry, and you can start exercising. What this showed me was that the behaviors that we associate with obesity, the gluttony and the sloth, are actually secondary to this biochemical phenomenon of insulin blocking leptin. And so this put me on the path of understanding insulin as the problem rather than insulin as the result. Fix the insulin, fix the problem. And so I've been doing that for the last 25 years.
And that's what brought you to the subject of sugar, because sugar increases insulin levels.
Well, sugar causes insulin resistance.
Okay.
So there are 2 phenomena with insulin. Insulin release, which is an acute phenomenon.
So that's when I eat something, there'll be some insulin released, which means I have an insulin spike.
Right.
And then it comes back down nicely.
Or not.
Or not.
Or not.
Depending on how much and how consistently I've been eating sugar.
Exactly right. So if your liver has fat in it, and 45% of American adults now have fat in their liver, and 25% of kids now have fat in their liver, and they never did before. I mean, before 1980, if you saw fat in the liver, that was alcohol. But if 25% of kids who don't drink alcohol have fat in their liver, how'd the fat get there? Sugar, because sugar gets turned into fat in the liver. That's the driver of this. What that does is that causes a phenomenon called insulin resistance. Your liver doesn't work right, so your pancreas has to make more insulin to make your liver work right. Like having to put more people on the assembly line when, people are, goofing off or, not getting their job done. All right? Same idea. So you have to basically goose the liver to do its job. Well, that raises insulin levels all over the body. And once that happens, now you're taking energy from your bloodstream and putting it in fat cells for storage. So by getting the insulin down, so if it's insulin resistance, fixing the insulin resistance by getting rid of the fat in the liver, or if it's the insulin release at the beginning by lowering your refined carbohydrate, because that's the primary stimulus of that first spike. Either way, it's refined carbohydrate and sugar. get the insulin down.
And diabetes is when?
Your pancreas can't keep up.
Okay, so it's really so much insulin, it goes, forget this, I'm done.
Right. It's the end result of both of these phenomena.
Which we've now realized is reversible. I think there was a school of thought once upon a time that diabetes couldn't be reversed, but
that's right.
But
That's
it is
right.
reversible.
It is very reversible for a while. So let's be clear and honest about this. There is absolutely no doubt that what doctors learn in medical school is wrong. We are told, and I know because I was told, that diabetes is a chronic, progressive, unrelenting disease that never gets better, and that you will need medication, whether it be insulin or oral hypoglycemics or whatever, for the rest of your life. Garbage. Total, complete trash. Now, Virta Health, numerous other studies of various diets show that you can absolutely reverse type 2 diabetes. In order to do so, you have to get the pancreas to make insulin properly. And the only way to do that is to get the liver to respond to insulin properly. One way is to not challenge the liver, give the liver a rest. Well, it's metabolizing all that refined carbohydrate and sugar. Drop the refined carbohydrate and sugar and make your liver work better.
Little keto?
So, a ketogenic diet's the extreme version of this. It's not the only way, but it is a way. Paleo diet is another version.
Fasting?
Intermittent fasting will give your liver a chance to burn off the fat that's accumulated over the last 16 hours. There are many ways to skin this cat.
Calorie counting?
Almost never.
Calorie restriction?
Yes, calorie restriction. But it's got to be consistent and long-term. And we've shown, numerous studies have shown, that as you restrict calories, that leptin resistance does not get better quickly. It takes years for that leptin resistance to finally go away, like 5 years, before you change the set point.
Let's take a step back. So what does leptin do again? It's about energy.
So leptin is made in your fat cells.
Yeah.
In response to driving energy into fat, the cell will make leptin. The leptin will circulate in the bloodstream, will go to your brain, go to your hypothalamus, and say, hey, I've got enough energy on board to engage in expensive metabolic processes.
So we don't need any more?
I don't need to eat more. I can engage in puberty. I can engage in pregnancy.
Okay.
Both of which are high metabolic processes.
Okay.
So it is like the servo mechanism, like the thermostat on your house. You have a floor but no ceiling. So when it's cold in your house, the heat kicks in. But if you don't have air conditioning, it can go higher, right? Same idea with leptin. Floor, no ceiling. So when your leptin goes below a certain threshold, your brain will see that as starvation.
You get really hungry.
And so you will get both hungry and you will also sit on the couch.
Okay. So that's the way the activity component comes in, because your brain's saying, listen, don't waste this energy.
Exactly. Conserve.
Okay.
Because we're in trouble here.
Right.
We're in trouble down here. Okay? So eat more and don't move. That's the biochemistry that drives the behavior.
Why don't they have leptin injections?
Well, they do.
Oh, really?
But it turns out it doesn't work in leptin resistance because the problem is not that you're missing leptin. The problem is you have too much leptin.
Okay.
It's just not working. So adding more leptin is like throwing kerosene on the fire.
The receptor sites have stopped.
Receptor sites are not there.
Okay.
Either they've been downregulated or they're being blocked, one or the other. If insulin blocks it, or they can be downregulated too, both. Now, if you're leptin deficient, and there are 14 patients with leptin deficiency, and quite a few of them, by the way, are in the UK of the 14. And Sadaf Farooqi and Steve O'Reilly at Addenbrooke's Hospital in Cambridge are the people who've done the most work on leptin deficiency. If you take a patient who's leptin deficient, they basically start gaining weight as soon as they're born. By age 6 months, they're already massively obese. By the age of 3, they can't even fit through the door. Okay, they eat everything in sight, and they don't move. You give them a shot of leptin because they're deficient. You're replacing what's missing, and they slim down like that.
They're genetically leptin deficient.
They're genetically leptin deficient. They have a mutation in their leptin gene.
So obesity could be genetic in some very, very small cases.
Very small number of patients. It is genetic, but that's not what's going on in the rest of the population. So yes, is obesity genetic for a small fraction? Sure. We have leptin deficiency, we have leptin receptor deficiency, we have PC1 deficiency, we have melanocortin-4 receptor deficiency, we have SIM1 deficiency. There are a whole host of different genes, and nobody has them. Nobody has them, all right? Like 14 people have them. It's very rare for the reason for general garden variety obesity out in the world to be due to a genetic problem. This is an environmental problem.
In your book, you talk about environmental obesogens. I've never heard that term before. What does it mean?
So, obesogens are chemicals in the environment that actually drive weight gain. They cause the differentiation of fat cells, or they cause the growth of fat cells. Now, fat cells are complex, okay? You have a certain number, but you can increase that number, especially early on in life. There's a critical period before age 2 where you can actually increase the fat cell number. And once a fat cell is developed, it wants to stay filled.
I mean, we got to pause here just for a second, because I think most people think that when we eat food, we increase the number of fat cells we have.
No, we increase the size of the fat cells we have.
This was I learned this a couple of years ago, and it kind of changed the way I think about a lot of things, including liposuction.
Yeah.
Because with liposuction, you kind of think that you're taking away fat cells that you've added to your body through diet, but actually the fat cells stay the same. They just grow and shrink.
Well, there's also a problem with liposuction as well. There are 3 fat depots, okay, and they're not the same. On the scale, they're the same because you weigh a certain amount, but from a metabolic standpoint, they are not the same. So let's take each of the fat depots separately so that your audience will understand what it is that they're actually concerned about. So the first fat depot is the obvious, what we call subcutaneous or big butt fat.
Belly fat as well?
No, that comes later.
Oh.
That's the second one.
Okay, subcutaneous.
Subcutaneous, big butt fat, or does this bathing suit make me look fat?
So are you saying that's good or bad?
It's actually good.
I agree.
It's protective. The more of it, the less likely that you will have metabolic disease. It is the place where your body wants to put excess energy because it's safe. Now, most of us have a certain ability to grow that fat to a certain level before it starts becoming a problem. Eventually, you can overload that subcutaneous fat where you will actually make the fat vacuole, the little pocket of fat within the fat cell, grow so much that it will actually cause the border of the vacuole to decompensate. And now you've spilled the grease into the cell. That will kill the cell, and that will cause inflammatory cells to congregate to try to clean up the grease, and then they secrete proteins called cytokines, which end up causing the metabolic dysfunction. In any case, you can overload your subcutaneous fat, but you have to work at it. So about how much fat does your subcutaneous fat have to grow before you become metabolically ill? On average, about 10 kilos, 22 pounds, some more, some less. Okay? Now let's take the second fat depot. Belly fat, visceral fat. This fat here.
Everyone's worst type of fat.
Well, yes, but not because of cosmetics, because of metabolism. In any case, the visceral fat, the belly fat, is that due to calories? Is that due to weight gain? That is actually due to cortisol. That's due to stress. And the reason we know that is because you can take patients who have endogenous clinical depression, okay? They are anhedonic. They don't eat because they generate no reward from life. They generate no reward from eating. They are losing weight. They have to be admitted to the hospital to keep them from killing themselves. So these are with people with suicidal ideation who have to be admitted to psychiatric hospitals. You put them in a scanner, and it turns out they're losing subcutaneous fat because they're not eating. They're gaining visceral fat because the cortisol from the stress that goes along with the depression is actually laying down more fat in their belly.
Why?
That's what cortisol does, because when you're stressed, you need a readily available and metabolically active source of energy in case you're being chased by the lion. So that metabolic fat, that visceral fat, is eminently retrievable rapidly.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Okay? Now, how many pounds or kilos of visceral fat do you have to gain before you become metabolically ill?
I'm going to guess it's not a lot based on...
That's right, not a lot.
So subcutaneous was 10 kilograms.
That's right. Now we're talking about 2 kilograms.
Okay, so 2 kind of bags of sugar.
Yeah, pretty much. Okay. Now, finally, the third fat depot, liver fat. Now, how many kilos of liver fat can you accrue before you become metabolically ill?
No, liver's really small. I have no idea.
Okay. 1/4 of a kilo. Half a pound.
And when you become metabolically ill, then all of the dysfunction we talked about previously happens.
That's right. So you can become metabolically ill and be thin because your subcutaneous fat's okay, even your visceral fat's okay. But if you've got liver fat, can you measure 1/4 of a kilo on the scale? No.
If you love the Diary of a CEO brand and you watch this channel, please do me a huge favor. Become part of the 15% of the viewers on this channel that have hit the subscribe button. It helps us tremendously, and the bigger the channel gets, the bigger the guests.